ABC's Peter Jennings has been in Berlin for several days now watching all of this take place and is standing by there now. Peter, tell us what's happening there at this moment.
Well, David, I think to sum it up, I think we're watching the European continent change before our eyes. You mentioned 1 million people come to West Berlin. They came yesterday. They estimate that by the time this weekend of freedom is over, 3 million people will have come across the entire frontier between East Germany and West. Let's take another look, if you've got a moment, at that scene at the Potsdamer Platz that Jerry King had in his report. This is the center of the old Berlin. This is where in 1953 East Germans rose up against Soviet occupation, where in 1961 they laid the first barbed wire. So the emotional impact of cutting a hole in the wall at that location is overwhelming. And everywhere you go along the wall, at all the new openings, people stream through with this same intensity. Those flowers arrived from Holland because some florists in Holland were sitting around and said, we've got to do something. So they got in a truck with 20,000 bouquets, and they drove down here to Berlin, and they haven't got nearly enough flowers. Everybody's been chipping away at the wall all along there. You find all sorts of freelancers trying to get their own piece of the wall down. And the sense of freedom is very much the same. You can't see it quite from that view of the Potsdamer Platz. Is very much the same on the eastern side of the wall. We spent all day yesterday on the eastern side, and it's quite stunning that only 4 weeks after we were here last time, you can actually talk to soldiers on the other side who say the wall has been too long in coming down.
Peter, are the people streaming through still staying long enough to shop, look around, and then going home?
Well, you mentioned people going to take a look at all the goods that are available here. You know, West Berlin, as you well know, David, was almost calculatingly designed to stick it in the communist world's eye. It's the great consumer paradise. And downtown Berlin today looks like downtown Beijing or downtown Shanghai. There are tens of thousands of people on the street. And the great irony here, David, is that while all these people have come across, all been given 100 marks, about $50 by the West German government. Do you know they can't afford what is in the West German shops? They'll all go home for the most part at the end of the day or at the end of the weekend. Of the estimated 3 million people who've come over the weekend, only apparently about 9,000 have asked to stay in West Germany for good. But in those shopping scenes, I think, are some real seeds of trouble for the future, because East Germans will think in time of what they've seen this weekend and realize with great weight that they aren't able to afford the kind of life that their brothers and sisters live on this side of the wall, even when it's open.
Peter, it was very interesting and touching to hear that I hadn't heard before, that the Dutch decided they had to do something, and so they sent flowers, which of course they produce in great quantities. In a minute or in a few minutes, we'll have the Secretary of State here, and we might ask him what we might do. Any suggestions?
Well, I can tell you this much. There are a lot of Americans here, of course, stationed in West Germany and stationed in Berlin. We're in the American sector, and Potsdamer Platz this morning was in the British sector. I think there's a real sense here that the United States is a little behind the curve on this, a little behind the curve to this extent. The president didn't seem very enthusiastic when he called in the press the other day, and people here wonder why. I said at the outset, we're watching Europe change. America's still a great ideal of democracy. But I think there is a little bit of feeling here that we're not quite up with the speed of events.
What might we do? Any ideas? It's a tough question, I know, and no one here
it's a tough call
really
for anybody.
knows the answer. Go ahead.
I suppose if you ask me for an answer, I'd say leave it in the hands of the Germans. West Germany is the most powerful and influential nation in Europe. I'm not sure that in the long run it is our place to be telling Germans either east or west about their future.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks very much.
Thanks, David.